True freedom is when you are no longer bargaining with life. You see, man spends his life in pursuit. He pursues money, woman, fame, rest, respectability. And the moment he grasps it, it turns to ash. That is the greatest joke of existence. He spends 50 years chasing a thing, and in the very moment of its arrival, it evaporates. That is why the treadmill of human life never ends. This perpetual dissatisfaction is not a curse, it is a revelation. It is life showing you will never be satisfied with trinkets. The liberation you taste is not in receiving, it is in the realization that there is nothing to receive. The only thing that keeps a man alive, sharp, aflame is the act of pushing against himself, against the edge, against that point at which the body says no more, against the whisper of the mind that says stop. Retirement? Retirement is death. Freedom is not sitting on a beach, that is slavery to comfort. Freedom is to be unshackled from the need for reward. When you see this clearly, rejection loses all its sting. For how can one be rejected when one is not asking for anything? How can you be defeated when the only game you play is to stretch yourself to the edge of impossibility? The only real life is the life of extremity, the life of total immersion, not extremity in the world's eyes, but extremity in your eyes. To live in such a way that there is no gap between yourself and the thing you are doing. To live such that every day you are on the knife's edge between collapse and the transcendence. That and only that is aliveness. That life never requires retirement. It never ends because it is not dependent upon achievement or accumulation or outcome. It is dependent only upon the fire within you to go further than you have ever gone. Do you see? A man dies long before his body dies. He dies when he begins to settle, when he begins to seek comfort, when he accepts his own mediocrity. The fire in him extinguishes not because of external enemies, but because he himself chooses to no longer go beyond the edge. The body becomes dull, the mind becomes stale, the spirit rots. This is why you see so many men walking around like corpses. Their eyes are glazed, their lives are repetitions. They are waiting for death while already being dead. To remain alive is not to breathe, it is to push, to stretch, to live each day as a confrontation with your own limits. That keeps the flame lit, that keeps you raw, sharp, dangerous, alive. Man has invented this concept called retirement. I will work until I am 60, then I will finally leave. But what happens? He retires and he is dead within. He watches television, he takes vacations, he sits in a chair, his body decays, his mind atrophies. Why? Because the essence of aliveness was never in rest, it was in struggle. Without struggle, man is a corpse dressed in flesh. The world has lied to you. Freedom is portrayed as comfort, a vacation, a house by the sea, no obligations. But that is not freedom. That is addiction to comfort. That is slavery to ease. True freedom is when you are no longer bargaining with life. When you are not saying, if I do this, I will get that. When you are not working for the paycheck or the applause or the trophy. Freedom is the state in which the doing itself is the reward. The masses believe extremity is climbing Everest, running ultra marathons, or making $1 billion. They are still playing to the gallery, still performing for applause, but the extremity I speak of is inward. It is to push yourself to the point where you have nothing left to give, and then to discover that you can go further. It is to immerse so completely in what you are doing that the distinction between you and the act disappears. It is extremity in sincerity, extremity in present, extremity in not holding back. Ordinary men live half in, half out. They are never fully present. Their mind is elsewhere. Their heart is elsewhere. Their body is elsewhere. They are scattered, divided. But when you are total, when there is no gap between you and the doing, you are alive. Then life is not something happening outside of you. Life is you. The knife's edge. Collapse and transcendence are always near. You are so immersed that any moment you could break, at any moment you could soar. This tension is what makes the act sacred. Anything less is mere existence. to eat, to sleep, to make money, to pass the time. That is existence. Cattle exist, bureaucrats exist, slaves exist, but the man who pushes beyond his edge, who immerses fully, who seeks nothing in return, he lives. He tastes aliveness. You see, man has turned his life into a marketplace. Everything he does is a transaction. He exercises not to exercise, but to get a body. He works not to work, but to get a paycheck. He loves not to love, but to get validation or security. He meditates not to meditate, but to get peace or enlightenment. Every act becomes poisoned by an ulterior motive. It is never about the act itself, it is always about what comes after. This is why man lives in perpetual tension. He is never free because he is always waiting for the result, waiting for the applause, waiting for the reward. He cannot enjoy the present because the present is nothing but a stepping stone to the future. True freedom is the end of this bargaining. It is the ability to throw yourself into something without needing it to give you anything back. When you write, you write. When you lift weights, you lift. When you speak, you speak. Not to gain, not to achieve, not to arrive. The act itself is enough. This is why freedom has nothing to do with the circumstances. A billionaire can be a slave, a monk in a cave can be a slave. The slave is the one who cannot act without the promise of reward. And the free man, he does what he does for no reason at all. No transaction, no bargain, no expectation. That is why life ceases to be means to an end and becomes an end in itself. That is freedom. You are beginning to glimpse the great disease of man. He cannot do anything without a hidden condition attached to it. He goes to the gym not for the joy of moving his body, but for the deal of a better physique. He studies not out of curiosity, but for the deal of a degree and a job. He marries not out of love, but for the deal of security, companionship, or social approval. He even meditates not to sit in silence, but for the deal of peace, bliss, or enlightenment. Every single thing becomes commerce, a trade, an exchange. And what happens? When the bargain fails, when the girl leaves, when the promotion does not arrive, when the peace never comes, he is shattered. He curses life. He says it is unfair. But the truth is this: life never agreed to your contract. Existence never promised you that if you work, you will succeed, that if you love, you will be loved, that if you meditate, you will find peace. These are illusions created by society, religion, and culture. When you see this clearly, you drop the bargaining table. And when the bargaining ends, something remarkable happens. Work becomes work. Love becomes love. Breath becomes breath. No longer poisoned by expectation. No longer enslaved by outcome. For the first time, you are actually alive. You taste the rawness of life without needing it to give you something back. You taste the joy of doing without asking for a return. The moment you remove this bargaining table, you are free. Because until then, you were not living, you were negotiating. Why is negotiation not living? Because every negotiation is always about the future. It is never about this. When you negotiate with life, you are saying, I will do this now so that something else happens tomorrow. The present moment becomes nothing but a stepping stone, a currency, a means to an end. You don't exercise for the act of moving the body. You exercise as a down payment for a future body. You don't speak to someone for the joy of connection. You speak as a transaction for approval or advantage. You don't meditate for the sake of silence. You meditate to buy peace or enlightenment. In every case, the present is devalued. It is used as a coin to purchase the future. So you never actually live the present. You only tolerate it, waiting for the reward. This is why it is not living. It is accounting. It is commerce. How does negotiation kill life? Because life only exists now. Not in the reward, not in the future outcome, only in this breath, this step, this moment. When you bargain, you miss it. You are staring at the receipt instead of tasting the food. You are staring at the finish line instead of running the race. Thus, a man can live 70 years negotiating and never live a single day. Living versus negotiating. Negotiating says, I will endure this moment so I can gain something later. Living says, this moment is everything, there is nothing later. When you remove the bargain, you drop the future, and when you drop the future, you finally meet life. So until then, you are not living, you are only postponing life, gambling with it, making deals with it. When you bargain with life, you are essentially saying, this moment is not enough, give me more. And whatever the more is, money, approval, sex, respect, enlightenment, it will rot in your hands the moment you get it. That is why the man is condemned to endless dissatisfaction. You ask the right question, why the hell bargain at all? Indeed, why? Because the bargain is the very structure of the conditioned mind. Society trained you to believe that life is a ledger, input is output, effort is reward, sow is reap. It is hammered into you from childhood. That is why even when you chase freedom, you chase it as a bargain. If I meditate, I will be free. And so freedom never comes. The alternative, to burn, to push, to hurl yourself into the act for no reason at all. Not because it will give you something, not because it will save you, but because that burning itself is life. When you cease pushing, when you fall into comfort, the mind fills with noise. The whispers come, the cravings come, the thoughts multiply. Why? Because the flame has gone out. There is no intensity. So the parasites of the mind begin to eat you alive. That is why you feel dull, heavy, distracted, lost whenever you stop pushing. It is not because you are lazy, it is because you have abandoned the only thing that makes a man alive, immersion without bargain. So, yes, distractions, unnecessary feelings, false longings, all of these are the diseases of a man who has quit the edge. The short man has no time for them. His very fire burns them away. Understand this clearly. Life is not meant to be bargained with. It is meant to be devoured whole. When you bargain with life, you stand outside of it. You treat it like a shopkeeper. You say, if I give you this, will you give me that? If I sweat, will you give me success? If I pray, will you give me peace? If I love, will you give me love back? This stance creates distance. You are not in life, you are negotiating with life. You are holding yourself apart, forever waiting, forever calculating, forever hoping. And as long as you are negotiating, you are never living. To devour life is to take into your mouth without condition. To chew it raw, to swallow it without asking, what will this give me? It is to throw yourself into running not for the medal, but for the pounding of your heart. It is to write not for readers, but for the fire of expression itself. It is to love not for reciprocity, but for the sheer bursting of your own chest. When you devour life whole, there is no leftover, no waiting, no tally sheet. You are not postponing the feast until tomorrow. You are eating it now, fully with both hands. Bargaining is nibbling. It is tasting the food while keeping one eye on the bill. Devouring is total, it is reckless, it is immersion. The paradox is when you devour life without asking for reward, life often gives you more than you ever asked. Strength, clarity, sharpness, joy, but they arrive only when you no longer chase them. The man who bargains with life never lives. He is always calculating, always waiting for the payoff, and so he starves. The man who devours life whole is fed in every moment. He asks for nothing, he expects nothing, and therefore he is free.